Everybody. My name is Kathy Brandon from www.kathybrandonspeaks.com. I want to welcome you to the first of a 6-part series, a video series that we're doing with Dr. Michael Harris. Hi, Michael. Thank you for joining us this morning. I told you guys last week that over Facebook that I'm going to introduce you to a lot of people over the next few months. And many of you know that that's my job, is to promote brilliant people. You know, I'm very blessed that way to have a job where I can promote brilliant people. But I wanted to introduce you to Michael specifically. He is the second person that I wanted to introduce you to. Manette was last week, and we started talking about how we could manage our families during the holidays. And Michael and I are going to start out this 6-part series talking about weight, talking about some body image things. You know, we all struggle with, you know, different things through the holidays and throughout the year, not only with weight, but just, you know, being tired and not really feeling like we're in shape and we can handle the life we live. So I thought I'd bring Michael. Michael is a hypnotherapist, and I'll take a couple of minutes to tell you about my experience with Michael. I'm a patient of Michael's. He is my hypnotherapist. I started working with Michael back at the beginning of last summer, and I wanted to address some personal habits. I was a nail biter, and I want to bring that really close to you guys. Let me see if I can do it. I no longer bite my nails, and so that's a testament to Michael. I've been a nail biter since I was about 10. And it was just kind of one of those nervous habits, you know, when I'd get stressed or something like that. And I met with Michael. What did we have, about 3 sessions, and then I took a little break, and just one day, I'd love to explain it to you guys in a better way. Most of you guys who know me know that I'm an analyzer, but I can't really explain it. I'm going to let Michael talk a lot more about it because he can explain it to you better than me. I just want to talk about the results in my life. We're still working on some other things. And so I will update you guys through this series because Michael and I are about to get to work again through the holidays. So you'll be able to see what Michael does, not only in the other people I introduce you to, but also in my life. So stay tuned for those results. Michael, today we're going to talk about the HypnoBand, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about you. And if you could just kind of talk to us a little bit about, you know, why you're a hypnotherapist and how long have you been in it and what brought you here, and then we'll start talking about weight loss and all that.
Well, you've picked my favorite topic. I mean, I love to talk about me. I got into hypnotherapy kind of flip over backwards. If you meet me now and I tell you like my story, it doesn't seem remotely similar to that was the same person. I used to be incredibly shy. I couldn't say hello. If there were 2 people standing there, I couldn't say hello to them because it was too many people. I also grew up in the U.S., so you know, men aren't allowed to have emotions, you know, and if they do have them, they're classified as bad. So I would say that when I was in my 20s, I was a really angry individual, and I accidentally read a newspaper, and they were offering a communication class on NLP, and the difference between NLP and hypnosis is this is NLP, this is hypnosis. Notice the difference?
Do that again.
so I mean, it's truly the same, almost exactly the same process. And the reason that I began doing that is I was working for a company and I was moving into management, and the people that I worked with were very poorly educated. There were lots of communication issues and huge and simultaneously huge safety issues. So the ability to communicate effectively so that everybody goes home with all of their arms and all of their legs and all of their fingers and stuff like that was pretty important. And so I took this weekend NLP course, and it was absolutely over. I was hooked permanently. It got the and it was over. And from that point forward, I began my path, and I eventually opened up a personal training company, and I had, you know, at one time I had 3 different gyms, and I had all these personal trainers. So learning how to manage rock stars is one thing, and then helping people set goals and set attainable goals in personal training so that they could lose weight, exercise, eat right, and integrate those things into their life. So I got more and more interested in communication, and ultimately I got more interested into hypnosis. And as soon as I got certified in hypnosis, I was inundated with requests, and I spent about 6 years working with USA Gymnastics, working with Junior Olympics, and pretty soon I was just too busy to do that, so I closed my gym, and that's all I did was sports performance hypnosis for a while. And during that time period, I decided I was going to go back to school, and I ultimately got my master's and my doctorate, and you know, and now we're here. So it's kind of been a process, but I've always been in the help industry.
Right. Now, tell us a little bit. You've talked a little bit about, and I just want to set some distinctions up for people who aren't really, like some people, you know, they don't even really know what NLP is. So tell us just a really quickie 30-second definition of NLP, and then a 30-second definition of hypnosis, just so we can draw the distinction right now and then move along.
Okay. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. The premise behind NLP is that people perceive the world visually, auditorily, and kinesthetically, and the way that they perceive the world creates their reality. And a linguist and a computer programmer wanted to break language into its smallest components, which are called submodalities, and they were looking for a place that was small enough where that they could repeat the same procedures over and over and get the same results. Interestingly enough, psychiatry, psychology, counseling has been around forever. But if you got 20 therapists together and say, okay, how do you fix a phobia? Nobody knew how to do it. So they actually came up with a mechanical process that's called the fast phobia cure. And it takes about 5 minutes to do it, and it works every single time. And that might be bad for the medical community, but it's great for people who have phobias. And they're just, I mean, there's just a wide variety of things that you can do that they're not magical, and you don't have to wear special shoes, and you don't have to carry a bunny foot in your pocket. If you do this procedure and you do it in this order and you do it at this time, you will get this result, and you can repeat that over and over and over and over again. And that's kind of why I do what I do, because I can get results. Somebody can come in, they've got a problem, and when they leave, it's gone. You had that experience. And
a lot of people really have a hard time, and I want to start talking about the lap band, but I do have one more question to kind of set the stage of where we're going with the HypnoBand, lap band, weight loss specifically. Is, okay, a lot of people have preconceived notions about hypnotherapy and about, now, when we were in session the last time, there's a thought process that you communicated to me about a strategy. Remember that? I know you remember that. Can you share that same thing here? I want to share that wording every single time through these 6 sessions so that people understand that, you know, hypnotherapy is not somebody putting things in your head, right? It is a process of which you get results. So can you explain that a little bit around that strategy that you talked about? Because that was a huge coconut on my head.
Well, you and I have talked about so much stuff. I'm just trying to think of exactly.
Let me tell you what you said. Yeah, let me tell you what you said. You said that every person has different habits, different thinking, different things that they do every single day. And it's a
Mhm.
strategy that you use
Oh, okay.
in your life. And if you look
Okay.
at it as, right? And so I want you to talk a little bit about that. Like, I'll come to the table and talk about exactly what we were talking about that day,
Okay.
not today,
Right.
because I don't want it to be about me, right? So, but
Right.
can you share that with the audience so that they can have a framework of what it really is that we're up to here?
Okay.
Thanks.
Um, well, basically, the way that the human mind works is that when we learn things, um, have you ever seen a little kid that learn how to tie their shoes? You know, and they'll do it over and over and over and over and over and over until you're throwing stuff at them, but they're still working on it. And what they're doing is that they're doing their mechanical chops. They're learning so that later on their brain can do it automatically. I mean, if you see a door with a doorknob on it, you don't have to go, hey, what is that? You know, you see any object that has a knob on it and you recognize it as a door. So if I change the door on my office and I put the doorknob in the center of the door instead of on the left-hand side of it, you'll still be able to recognize it and still be able to operate it. Okay, well, what happens if you unintentionally, or, well, it could be intentionally, you intentionally create a strategy to solve a specific problem for a very specific context that is absolutely appropriate for this 2 minutes when you were 8 years old, okay? And then you discover that this strategy works in other areas of your life. And you may not even remember creating this strategy for this one little context, and you just leave this little machine and it's just running and running and running like software in the background. And it just, you know, it does what it does, and it just takes on more and more and more and more and more jobs until it becomes a part of your behavior. It becomes part of your personality of who you are. You could probably live your whole life, you know, and it would never be a problem. Well, what happens if that strategy no longer serves you? You know, here's a real good example, because we're going to be talking about weight loss. Okay, how many people, if all the people that are going to listen to this, you know, you think about when you were a kid, you know, and you fell down, you skinned your knee, you had a tough day, you had a something. What did they say? What did they say? Oh, I'm sorry, you had a tough day. Here, have a cookie. You know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
You did something incredible. How did they celebrate? Let's go to dinner.
Right. Banana split.
Okay? Yeah, let's go have a banana split.
Yeah.
Okay, or whatever it is. So a lot of our socialization, which is also a strategy,
Right.
revolves around food. Okay, so if I call you up, you know, and say, hey Kathy, let's get a whole bunch of people together, what's the number one question that is going to come up after who and where? What are we going to eat?
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
Party's not a party without great food. That's
it's not a party without food. Well, it could be.
Right.
So, I mean, basically what we're going to talk about in this series, or at least what I want to talk about, is that the average American eats too much and moves around far too little. I mean, you didn't walk to work, you're in your house.
Right.
Okay? So I got up from my house, got in my car, rode in my car all the way down here to the office, and now I'm sitting in my chair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So as humans, I don't know if they've noticed that these things that stick out from underneath our waist, you know, our legs, we are a locomotion machine, and we have created a reality in which that we move around very, very little. So one of the things that I do want to talk about, although I don't specifically handle it in the HypnoBand process, is that we have a need for people to become more active.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to be more active. Now, let's talk about the HypnoBand because, you know, we've got some time. Now, okay, so here's what I know, right? And I'm probably talking from, you know, most of the, you know, regular folks' perspective is, okay, you know, in order to lose weight, in order to really get healthy, you know, there are a lot of different options. One of the options is the lap band procedure. And I've known a lot of people who have gotten a lap band over the years. And that's why I'm so interested in the HypnoBand, because I've seen people get the lap band and they live that lifestyle and they're fine. And then I've also seen other people get that lap band and then they just really couldn't grab a hold of the right lifestyle for them to keep their weight under control. And so the HypnoBand, in my opinion, okay, you're going to address what is really making the weight happen in the first place, and not in like this whole psycho babble, I got to go see a shrink for 100 years. Nothing, you know, disparaging about psychiatrists or anything. I think everybody has a place. But when we're talking about this kind of procedure, if someone is really considering this kind of procedure, a lap band procedure, they're very serious and committed to making their life better. So talk to us a little bit about the HypnoBand. Like, how does that process work?
Okay. Well, let's actually back up a step. There are people out there who they have serious problems. They have medical problems or they have physical problems as a result of gaining weight, and they absolutely positively cannot control the amount of food that they eat. You know, and you would. I've seen it. I've seen enough. You know, where you can do the whole logical thing. Well, you should have self-control. Well, what if you don't? Okay.
Right.
So medical science came up with this process, and they said, okay, this is what we're going to have to do. If you continue to eat the way that you're eating right now, you're going to wear your joints out, and you are going to die. Period. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go in there, and what they used to do is they would either reduce the size of the stomach or they would remove the stomach completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? Which is kind of scary because your stomach does lots of nifty little things to digest your food, and it produces enzymes, so they would remove the person's stomach, and then you would have to take digestive enzymes and you'd have to do all of these nifty things. And then they came up with the idea of saying, okay, well, what if we could take, and I'm trying to hold my hands up high enough, what if we could take the stomach and put something around it that the food would come up to here. It would give the body the signal that you've eaten, but the food could still pass through and go in. So that is really how the lap band and the gastric bypass and these things came about. But as usual, in true medical form, they were looking at a solution, and they were not taking into account all of the nifty little things that you and I are going to be talking about. For example, all the data is out. Gastric band and lap band and gastric bypass has been around for more than 10 years, so the data is coming back in, and the incidence of risky behavior and dangerous behavior in terms of alcoholism, sexual promiscuity, drinking, gambling, and other types of risky behavior, these things go into orbit after the person has received the lap band, gastric sleeve, and the reason is that body fat was actually serving a purpose.
Right.
And that's the interesting part, and that's where we start getting into hypnosis, is what is the secondary benefit that the person is receiving as a result of being massively overweight. For example, you know how incredibly shallow Americans are. So if you have somebody who is very, very overweight, it's going to cut down on their dating and marriage options.
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that if they are married or they are in a relationship and they gain weight that they will lose their relationship, although that does happen. But
Yeah.
the incidence of single people who are very obese, it cuts down on their options. Okay, so if you have somebody and they have a gastric bypass or a lap band or something like that, and they lose 150 pounds, okay, that's a whole person. Now they are literally a brand new person. They look better, they feel better, they probably have more energy. They start sending out those signals. And if you've had somebody who has been pretty much out of the dating scene their whole life, and now they're getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're getting a lot of attention. What do you think their behavior is going to be like? They're going to love this attention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I don't know about you, but when I grew up, you know, condoms were something that people talked about. It wasn't something that people used. STDs were something that happened to those people over there who, I guess, didn't use soap and water. Well, every kid that goes to high school and college now, they are more up to speed on STDs and condom use and birth control and all those things, far more than we ever were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what if you got somebody who's my age and they have never been really, really active, and now they lose 150 pounds and they're out there in the world? Do you really think that they're going to be acting in a safe manner? Probably not.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The other thing that's really interesting is if you think in terms of obesity, and I'm not trying to pick on people who are overweight. It's a serious problem. It's why I do what I do. But there are some realities that we need to discuss, and we'll discuss them in the office. Is what if you closet risk taker, big time? You know, you like really, really risky behavior. You know, you would jump out of an airplane. You would ride a roller coaster. Well, isn't being 100 pounds overweight, does that qualify as risky?
Right. And that's back to that strategy as well.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about how we put strategies in place.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like in normal everyday thinking, you know, you wouldn't think of, you know, somebody who's overweight as a big risk taker. But, you know, it is. You know, you're putting your life on the line. And there's a difference between someone who's big boned and has a big, you know, tall body. That there's a difference. And I want to make that distinction now so that people understand really what we're talking about. We're talking about the individuals who are just not happy with your body. And we're talking about the individuals who have gone to doctors and who have been on every diet known to man. And what I'm hearing you say, Michael, is, you know, okay, take the 150, 200 pounds off, and not only are you a new person, but you're almost at that level where, you know, you never got to enjoy your teenage years like you probably thought you should, the whole dating and exploration. And, you know, we always, you know, I'm in my 40s, and I know that I laugh and joke about midlife crisis and all this. So I can't imagine the emotional entanglements that come up. You know, you lose 200 pounds. You've never really dated. You've never really had that experience of exploring life, but you're this major risk taker. And nobody's seen it. You know, because nobody looks at it that way. Nobody looks at putting on an extra 50 pounds as taking a huge risk. But it is. It's not any different than jumping out of a plane. You know, because I put 50 pounds on my body and I'm going to start having lung disorders, heart problems.
Knee problems, joint problems.
Yeah, every kind of problem.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that strategy for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard of people who you know, they were in and I see that people who they put weight on, particularly people who, if they're in a relationship, you'll see, and the relationship is having problems, you know, and they're non-specified problems. They could be one of their children is sick. They have a parent that's dying. They're having money stress. or whatever, and you'll see people they'll put on 10 pounds. Okay, that's not a big deal, right? 10 pounds, a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, well, what happens if you put on 10 pounds a year for 10 years?
Right.
Right. Okay, so now you've got somebody, they've been married for 10 years, they're 100 pounds overweight. Okay, so that's one of those little bitty strategies that you can do something about. Now, the nice thing about HypnoBand is you can take it off fairly quickly.
Right.
But you've got to clean it up in here. And I don't know if you can see my chest. I'm pointing at my heart. You gotta clean it up in here before you clean it up out here on the thing. What happens in your mind and what happens in your heart is going to show up in 2 to 6 months on your body. And that is actually the purpose of HypnoBand, is to clean up the internal stuff, so that the simple things like eating less and getting a little bit more exercise, drinking a little bit more water, drinking a few less sodas, per day. If you drink 3 sodas a day and you cut down to 1, absolutely you're going to lose weight.
Right.
Period. Okay? But cleaning up all of those other internal strategies, it's going to help as well. Conversely, if you have a strategy, and this may sound terrible, but if you grew up in a household in which the parent is not having a good day and they're blaming the child for their not having a good day, and you grow up and your parent is telling you, you're stupid, you're a piece of crap, you're this, you're that. Okay, what happens when that person gets a gastric band, gastric sleeve, or gastric bypass? Okay, now their physical body is going to be incongruent with all these messages that they've gotten over here, and they're going to have to do one of the things. People say that survival is the strongest will that we have. No, it's not. The strongest will that the human mind has is the necessity of remaining consistent with their identity. And if your identity, or the identity that you were trained to have, is that you're stupid, you're a piece of crap, you're a fatty, you're a whatever it is, I don't care what you do. You're going, you go get a gastric bypass or whatever it is, and you don't change that internal structure, you will be, it will take you some time, but you will be able to out-eat that surgery. And I've actually had a couple of people in my office that had gastric bypass. They don't even have a stomach. Okay, and they had this thing 9 years ago. They lost almost 170 pounds, and in a 9-year period after they lost all that weight, they have managed to gain back 100 pounds. Okay, and so I did the strategy portion of the HypnoBand with them, and they lost a dress size a week for the last 4 weeks. So I know the process works, but you got to clean up the inside as well as the outside.
I've got a question for you, and we'll start wrapping up now. Okay, so in the process of the HypnoBand, what I'm hearing you say is, without a lot of, I've been through hypnotherapy and it's completely painless, and no, they don't put you to sleep and all that good stuff. But what I do want to share with people who've just never had the experience, right? I want to break through barriers so that people can get this, is, okay, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that, okay, you can get the you can get the lap band and your insurance will pay it, and you can do all that stuff. And even if you do keep the weight off, if you're not addressing the habits and the thinking that actually drove you to that image of yourself, then even if you don't pick up the weight again, you're going to pick up some other destructive habit or thinking, like gambling, or, you know, you'll overwork, or, you know, I mean, I don't know, any number of things that people can do, you know, that are destructive. You know, you get judgmental toward everybody else in your life now that you've lost 100 pounds. You know, that's even more destructive than like gambling, is when you just
become a born again skinny person.
Yeah, right. And so, but I do want to share that because it's all the same behavior, right? Whether you are gambling, whether you're overweight, whether you're drinking, whether you're doing drugs, whether you're just judging everybody in your life to make yourself feel good. That is all, like, every ounce of that behavior is exactly the same. Can you talk about that? That's what you're talking about, removing, and the weight comes off. Am I hearing you clearly?
There's actually 3 steps to this process. Okay, process 1 is the one that we're talking about, where we're modifying the internal structures that got you to this place that you're at. Part 2 is actually the simplest part, which is the actual it's virtual surgery. Okay, so it's hypnotic surgery, and that's the second part. And then the third part is the part where we actually create a community, and we help the people learn new life skills and modify existing life skills to accommodate this change in their life. I mean, there's 8 areas in your life. I mean, I know a secret about you. You play Frisbee golf. Okay?
Love it.
And if you didn't watch yourself, you could easily quit your job, you could quit life and go play Frisbee golf, and you'd be just fine.
Right. Actually, I would. Yes.
Yeah. So, but that's not very ecological, because you have fun things like mortgages and kids that are going to school, and, you know, maybe they want to go to college, and you know, you're probably going to need to buy groceries next week. You know, so making sure that your change is ecological, and not just ecological with you, but ecological within your personal system, because generally there's other people around you. And I don't care what context it is, you know, nobody wants to be around a zealot.
Right, right.
Okay. Because I'm pretty sure that you have been around somebody in your lifetime at one time or another who's become a born-again non-smoker.
Well, I've been around a lot of people who, I'm a preacher's daughter, so I've been around a lot of Bible thumpers. But one of the things that I know is I've been around them, and I've been that. You know, whenever I started my business and I launched on this whole, okay, I'm going to own a self-development company that helps business owners and speakers, blah, blah, blah. You know, I became very passionate, and you know, I hate to admit to the label of being a judgmental person, but I'm sure I stepped into that a lot. And, you know, because I wanted everybody to have it. You know, and it just, so I understand that whole zealot. I understand it on both ends. I know it repels me, and I know that when I show up as that, I am quite a sickening individual. And so, you know, but that is part of the strategy, right? You know what I mean? Like, we have something beautiful come, like, I had the freedom to start a business. I had everything line up in my life to allow me to start a business, the dream I had for the rest of my life.
Sure.
And so the same thing with people who lose a lot of weight, that turn around and look at everybody in their life and say, hey, oh, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. It's a strategy, right? Because we got something we dreamed of, and our self-image, not to sound all psychological on you, but our self-image doesn't match what we're doing.
Right.
And so we get judgmental, because that's how we can feel good about ourselves. And now next week I want to talk about this whole hypnosis surgery concept. Like, yeah, I want to spend a lot of time on that, because I know when people hear that kind of thing, they get kind of freaked out about it. They don't understand what it is. Most people are kind of have a few little trust issues. So, you know, I want to talk more about that and how safe that is.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that you'll find it interesting, particularly when I tell you we're going to do like a 2-minute history lesson of of how hypnosis came about. And if you when you hear it and you find out what problems that hypnosis solved, when hypnosis, when the word hypnosis was actually created in the 1800s, it was created for a very specific purpose that related to surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of all I'm going to say for right now. But I mean, it's actually really, really fascinating. And there's a very, very famous hospital, which I'm also going to leave the name out until next time, that was started by two brothers. And the reason that they started this hospital is because they had 24,000 successful surgeries without a single death. And they were so well known and they were so sought after that they opened up their own clinic. And that's the only hint that I'll give you. And,
Oh, nice.
okay.
Okay, what we're going to do is, why don't we tell people how to get in touch with you, Michael, and tell them, you know, what's going on for you in November. You have an enormous amount of stuff, and we're about the 15th of the month. So I know you have a food drive going on, all sorts of things going on for you in November. So can you update us with at least how people can get in touch with you and what's going on that people need to take advantage of this month?
Okay. You can get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me through my HypnoBandTexas.com website or my drmichaelharris.com website. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. If you type in if you Google Dr. Michael Harris and you can't find me, you're not looking. My email is drm@drmichaelharris.com. What you were talking about, every November I do all of my charity work, so I book as many appointments as I humanly can. This year it's going to end up being around 67 appointments.
Wow.
And for 5 cans of food, you can get a hypnosis session, and I do that to help the John Thomas AIDS and HIV Center, because there are lots of people, particularly during this time of year, that they don't have enough to eat. They don't have anybody around them, and I think that is sad, and we can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also have a telephone number. You know, I should have put my phone number on here, but you can reach me through my Google voicemail. It's 214-702-3774. And I'll just do that again, 214-702-3774, or drm@drmichaelharris.com.
Awesome. Everybody reach out to Michael. He is awesome. You're going to want to schedule an appointment with him this month, and certainly bring your 5 cans of food. We will have 5 more video seminars. The next 2 will be on the lap band, the HypnoBand. Next week we are going to talk about hypnotic surgery and how hypnotherapy came into play. The next is the 3rd series is going to be around, you know, blending that into your lifestyle, life skills, and so we're going to talk about that. The 4th video is going to be, we're going to have Michael share some of his insights on business. We're going to have him share some of his tips and tricks on being a successful practice-based business. And then the final 2 are going to be around us really talking about how to get rid of some of those other habits. And so, you know, between now and the end of the year, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about pretty much all the problems that we always hear people talk about at the end of the year, wanting to do something about at the beginning of the year. So I thought what I wanted to do for the people in my life, the people in Michael's life, and however far this gets shared out, is I want to give you guys another opportunity to solve these problems instead of just making a resolution, right? We just want to get rid of this stuff so that we can live big and fun and joyful. So I want to leave you guys with that. Reach out to Michael. You can find him at drmichaelharris.com. And if you Google Dr. Michael Harris, he will be the first couple of pages. So please reach out to him. And again, this is Kathy Brandon. If you want to meet me, if you want to talk to me, I can be reached at www.kathybrandonspeaks.com. And everybody have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.